Part 1. The Salvage Find, Marcus Chen. Wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the twisted piece of metal floating in the auction yard. The other buyers walked past it without a second look. To them it was just scrap. It's worthless junk from some old battle. But Marcus saw something different. He had been in the salvage business for 15 years. His father taught him to look beyond the surface. Every wreck has secrets, son, the old man used to say. You just need to know where. To look right now, Marcus needed those secrets more than ever. His ship was falling apart. His creditors were getting angry. This auction was his last chance to make enough money to stay in business. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms, pointed at the wreck. Lot 47, unknown vessel, partially destroyed, no identification markers, starting bid, 500 credits. Marcus raised his hand. Around him, other salvage dealers shook their heads. 500 credits for a piece of twisted metal? Seemed crazy. Do I hear 600? The auctioneer called. Silence. 500 going once, ... going twice. Sold to the human in the back. Marcus felt his stomach drop. 500 credits was almost everything he had left. If he was wrong about this wreck, he would be finished. 3 hours later, Marcus guided his salvage ship closer to the wreck. Up close, it looked even worse. The hull was cracked and bent. Blast marks covered the surface. Whatever happened to this ship, it had been violent. But as Marcus ran his scanner over the metal, his eyes widened. The readings were incredible. This wasn't normal ship metal. The alloys were unlike anything he had seen before. Some parts were harder than diamond. Others seemed to bend light around them. What were you carrying? Marcus whispered to the dead ship. He suited up and floated over to the wreck. His plasma torch cut through the outer hull easily, but the inner walls were different. They resisted. His torch. It took him 2 hours to cut a hole big enough to crawl through. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Marcus's headlamp lit up strange corridors that curved in impossible ways. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. He had been in thousands of wrecked ships, but this one felt different, alive somehow. Even though it was clearly dead, Marcus followed the main corridor toward what he thought was the center of the ship. His boots echoed strangely in the empty halls. The sounds seemed to go on forever, as if the ship was much bigger inside than outside. After 20 minutes of walking, he found a sealed door. It was different from the others, thicker, more protected. Whatever was behind it, someone had wanted to keep it safe, or keep it locked in. Marcus set up his plasma torch again. This door fought back even harder. The metal seemed to heal itself as he cut, but Marcus was patient. He had learned patience from years of difficult salvage jobs. Finally, the door gave way. Marcus pushed through the opening and stepped into a circular room. His headlamp swept across the walls, revealing banks of strange equipment. Everything was dead now. Marcus could see this had once been some kind of control room. In the center of the room stood a single pod. Marcus walked closer, his heart beating faster. The pod was made of the same strange metal as the door. But unlike everything else on the ship, this pod still had power. Dim lights blinked along its sides. A soft humming sound came from within. Marcus found what looked like a viewing window and wiped away the frost. What he saw inside made him step back in shock. It was a girl. She looked young, maybe 18 or 19 in human years, but she wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue, almost white. Intricate patterns covered her arms and face like tattoos, but these patterns glowed softly with their own light. Her hair was silver and seemed to float around her head like she was. Underwater, she was naked and alone in the cold pod. Marcus checked his scanner. She was alive, but barely. The pod's power was failing. The life support systems were breaking down. According to his readings, she had maybe 6 hours left. Marcus stared at the girl through the frost-covered window. He'd found many things. In wrecked ships over the years. Valuable metals, lost treasures, ancient artifacts, but never a person. Never someone who was still alive. He should walk away. Getting involved with aliens, especially unknown aliens, was dangerous. The consortium had strict rules about undocumented species. If they found out he was hiding someone, they would throw him in prison. But as Marcus watched, the girl's glowing patterns flickered and dimmed. She was dying right in front of him. Marcus thought about his father. The old man had taught him about salvage. But he had taught him about something else too. Sometimes, son, the most valuable thing you can find isn't worth any money at all. Marcus made his decision. He spent the next hour figuring out how to open the pod without killing the girl inside. The controls were alien, but some things were universal. Pressure gauges, temperature readings, power levels. Marcus had always been good with machines, even strange ones. When the pod finally opened, cold air rushed out. The girl's breathing was shallow and weak. Her skin felt like ice. Marcus wrapped her in his emergency blanket and carried her back to his ship. His medical bay was small and basic, designed for human injuries. But Marcus did what he could, hooked her up to oxygen and warming blankets. He gave her fluids through an IV. He monitored her vital signs on his scanner. For 3 days, she lay unconscious. Marcus stayed by her side, checking her condition every few hours. He told himself he was just protecting his investment. If she died, he would have nothing to show for the 500 credits. But the truth was different. Looking at her pale face, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Responsibility for another person. On the 4th day, her eyes opened. They were the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. Deep purple, like the space between stars. And they were filled with terror. The girl tried to sit up, but she was too weak. She said something in a language Marcus had never heard. Her voice was like music, but desperate music. The sound of someone who had lost everything. Marcus held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe now. I won't hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but something in his voice seemed to calm her. The terror in her purple eyes faded, replaced by confusion. Marcus smiled and pointed to himself. He said. She watched him for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she pointed to herself and said, "Zara." What? It was the beginning of everything. Part 2. The Awakening over the next week. Marcus learned that taking care of an alien was harder than fixing any broken ship. Zara was fragile in ways that surprised him. Things that wouldn't hurt a human child could seriously injure her. Ships. Normal lighting was too bright for her sensitive eyes. The temperature that felt comfortable to Marcus made her shiver uncontrollably. Even the sound of his boots on the metal floor seemed to cause her pain, but Marcus was patient. He dimmed the lights and moved quietly around his ship. He found softer clothes for her to wear and warmer blankets for her bed. Slowly, day by day, Zara grew stronger. Communication was their biggest problem. Marcus tried basic words, pointing at objects and saying their names in standard, the common language used across the galaxy. Zara listened carefully and tried to repeat the sounds, but her voice was different. What sounded like simple words to Marcus came out as musical notes from her lips. On the 8th day, something strange happened. Marcus was checking the ship's navigation system when he felt a sudden wave of sadness wash over him. It was so strong that tears came to his eyes. But the sadness wasn't his. It was coming from somewhere else. He turned around and saw Zara standing in the doorway of the medical bay. She looked at him with those deep purple eyes, and Marcus felt the sadness again. But this time, he understood. She wasn't just sad, she was lonely, terrified, lost in a universe where nothing made sense anymore. "You can feel what I'm feeling," Marcus said softly. Zara tilted her head, not understanding his words, but sensing the wonder in his emotions. She nodded slowly. Marcus sat down on the floor so he wouldn't tower over her. Zara was small, barely reaching his shoulder when she stood. He thought calm thoughts, tried to project feelings of safety and warmth. Zara's eyes widened. The glowing patterns on her skin grew brighter for a moment. She took a careful step toward him. Over the following days, they developed their own way of talking. Marcus would think about simple concepts while saying the words out loud. Zara would sense his meaning through her strange ability and try to copy the sounds. It was slow work, but it brought them closer together. Marcus learned that Zara's people communicated as much through emotions as through words. Every feeling, every intention was shared openly. The idea of hiding thoughts or lying was foreign. To her, this made Marcus uncomfortable at first. He was used to keeping his feelings private, but around Zara, privacy was impossible. She could sense his moods, his fears, his growing concern for her safety. On the 15th day, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. He had been going through the data cores he had salvaged from Zara's ship. Most of the information was encrypted or in languages he couldn't read, but his computer finally cracked one file. What he saw made his blood run cold. The file contained medical records, surgery reports, genetic modification data. All of it focused on one subject, Zara. Marcus stared at the screen in horror. The records showed procedures that no living being should endure. Brain surgery, genetic alterations, tests designed to measure and enhance psychic abilities. Zara wasn't a passenger on that ship. She was a prisoner, a test subject. Marcus looked at the scars on Zara's arms and back with new understanding. He had thought they were natural markings, part of her alien biology. But now he saw them for what they really were. Signs of torture. Evidence of experiments. When Zara found him later, that evening, she immediately sensed his anger and horror. She touched his arm gently, her purple eyes full of questions. Marcus showed her the data files. Even though she couldn't read the text, the medical images told the story clearly enough. Zara's glowing patterns dimmed as she looked at pictures of her own surgery. For the first time since she had awakened, Zara spoke in full sentences. The words came out broken and halting, but Marcus understood. They took my people, she whispered. Killed everyone, kept me. Marcus felt her pain like a physical blow. Through their empathic connection, he experienced flashes of her memories. A beautiful world with crystal cities. People like Zara, their skin patterns glowing as they shared thoughts and feelings. Then ships in the sky, weapons firing. Screams that echoed across the landscape. Why did they keep you alive? Marcus asked gently. Zara's patterns flickered as she concentrated on the words. My, ability, special. They want, make, soldiers. Marcus understood. Zara's empathic powers weren't just for communication. In the right hands, they could be weapons, the ability to sense emotions, to influence thoughts, to turn enemies against each other. Someone had wiped out her entire species to get their hands on this power. And they had kept Zara alive as their test subject, their living laboratory. Who were they? Marcus asked, but Zara couldn't answer. The trauma of her capture had left gaps in her memory. She remembered the experiments, the pain, the loneliness. But the faces of her captors were shadows in her mind. That night, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives. He could turn Zara over to the consortium authorities. They would protect her, maybe even help her find other survivors of her people. It was the safe choice. It's the legal choice. But Marcus had seen enough of the galaxy to know that safety and legality weren't the same thing. The consortium was made up of many different species, and not all of them had humanity's sense of right and wrong. Some of them might see Zara as a valuable resource rather than a person who needed help. Worse, whoever had destroyed her world was still out there. They had spent years experimenting on her. He wouldn't give up easily. Marcus sat in his pilot's chair, staring out at the stars. His ship was small and old. His weapons were outdated. His crew consisted of himself and one traumatized alien. Girded against him were forces with enough power to destroy entire worlds. Any reasonable person would run, find a quiet corner of the galaxy and hide. But Marcus had never been entirely reasonable. It was one of the things that made him human. Activated his ship's communication system and sent out a carefully coded message to an old friend. Someone who might know how to help. In the medical bay, Zara slept peacefully for the first time since her rescue. Through their growing bond, she could sense Marcus's determination. She didn't understand his plan, but she understood his intentions. 4. The first time in years she felt hope. Marcus watched her sleep and made a silent promise. Whatever had happened to her people, whatever forces were hunting her, he would keep her safe, even if it killed him. The galaxy was about to learn that. Humans were very bad at giving up on the people they cared about. Part 3. The hunter's Marcus's peaceful life ended 3 days after he sent the coded message. He was docking at Titan Station, a small trading post on the outer rim, when Zara suddenly grabbed his arm. Her purple eyes were wide with terror. Glowing patterns on her skin flickered like broken lights. "They come," she whispered in her broken standard. "I feel ... cold mines. Hunting mines." Marcus looked at the station's scanner display. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace. They looked normal enough standard cargo haulers that dozens of species used for trade. But something about their formation made Marcus nervous. "How many?" he asked Zara. She closed her eyes, concentrating. Through her empathic abilities, she could sense the minds aboard those ships. What she felt made her shiver. "Many. 20. 30. Minds like ice. No feelings. No. Mercy." Marcus didn't wait to see what the ships wanted. He fired up his engines and pulled away from the station as fast as his old ship could manage. The 3 ships immediately changed course to follow him. "Definitely not traitors," Marcus muttered. He opened a communication channel to the lead ship. "This is salvage vessel Lucky Strike. You're following my flight path. Please state your business." The answer came in a cold, mechanical voice. "Salvage vessel, you are carrying stolen property. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed." Marcus looked at Zara, who was strapped into the co-pilot's seat. Her face was pale with fear, but she shook her head firmly. "Not stolen," she said. "I am ... person, not thing." Marcus smiled grimly and switched back to the communication channel. "Sorry, but I'm not carrying any stolen property. Just salvage and personal belongings." "We are scanning your ship now," the voice replied. "Biosignatures confirm the presence of our property. You have 10 seconds to comply." Marcus cut the communication and pushed his engines to maximum power. His ship wasn't built for speed, but it was tough. It had survived 15 years of asteroid mining and salvage work. Maybe it could survive this too. The chase began. Marcus's ship shook as energy blasts exploded around them. The hunters had good weapons, but they were trying not to destroy his ship completely. They wanted Zara alive. "Hold on," Marcus told Zara. As he threw the ship into a steep dive toward the nearby asteroid field, flying through asteroids was dangerous even for experienced pilots. Most ships avoided them completely. But Marcus had spent years mining in fields like this. He knew how to read the gravitational currents, how to use the spinning rocks as cover. His ship twisted between massive asteroids, using their bulk to block incoming fire. The hunters followed, but they were less skilled in this environment. One of their ships clipped a small asteroid and spun out of control. 2 left, Marcus said. But the remaining hunters were learning. They split up, trying to trap Marcus between them. His ship was fast and maneuverable, but theirs had better weapons and shields. A lucky shot hit Marcus's rear engine. Alarms screamed. As power fluctuated throughout the ship, they were losing speed rapidly. "Engines hit," Marcus said. "We need to find somewhere to hide." Zara pointed to a massive asteroid ahead of them. It was hollow inside, probably an old mining operation. "There." Marcus nodded and aimed for the opening. His damaged ship limped inside just as the hunters rounded the asteroid. For a moment, they were hidden in the darkness, but not for long. The hunters would scan the asteroid and find them soon. "Sorry," Marcus said to Zara. "I thought I could keep you safe." Zara looked at him with those deep purple eyes. Through their empathic bond, she could feel his guilt and frustration. But she could also feel something else. Something the hunters couldn't understand. Love. Not romantic love, but the fierce, protective love of someone who refuses to abandon family. "You did keep safe," she said softly. "You gave me ... hope, showed me ... kindness, made me feel ... human." Stared at her. "You're not human, Zara. You're something better." "No," she said, her patterns glowing brighter. You taught me to be human, to care about others, to fight for what is right. Outside, they could hear the hunters' ships moving closer. Scanners were probing the asteroid, searching for their hiding. Zara stood up from her seat. I will not let them hurt you. No, but she was already moving toward the ship's airlock. Marcus caught her arm. They'll take you back, he said. They'll hurt you again. Zara smiled sadly. Maybe, but they will not hurt you. That is... enough. Through their bond, Marcus felt her determination, but he also felt something else. A deep, burning anger that had been growing inside her since she learned about her people's fate. There's another way, Marcus said suddenly. He had been thinking about Zara's abilities. She could sense emotions and intentions. But the medical files from her ship suggested she could do more than just sense. The experiments had been designed to enhance her powers. The hunters, Marcus said. You can feel their minds? Zara nodded. If you could do more than feel them? What if you could? Influence them? Zara's eyes widened. I do not know how. Remember what they did to you, Marcus said? Remember your people? Feel that anger? That need for justice? Then push it out, toward them. Zara closed her eyes and concentrated. Marcus could feel her anger through their bond. It was like standing next to a furnace. All the pain, all the loss, all the helpless rage of watching her world die. She focused that rage and projected it outward, on the hunters' ships. Something unprecedented happened. The cold, emotionless soldiers suddenly felt something they had never experienced before. Guilt, horror at what they had done. Shame for following orders without question. One hunter put down his weapon and walked away from his post. Another began, crying for reasons he couldn't understand. A third started smashing his ship's computers, desperate to destroy any record of their mission. The hunter's leader tried to maintain control, but his crew was falling apart. Emotions they had been trained to suppress came flooding back. Memories of homes they had destroyed, families they had separated, innocent beings they had killed. Marcus watched on his scanner as the two hunter ships began to drift apart. Their coordination was broken. Their crews were in chaos. It worked, he whispered, but Zara collapsed from the effort. The patterns on her skin had gone completely dark. Using her abilities on that scale had drained her completely. Marcus caught her as she fell. She was unconscious but breathing. Through their fading bond, he could feel her exhaustion. The hunter ships were retreating now, their crews too broken to continue the mission. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. More hunters would come, stronger ones, better prepared ones. He carried Zara back to the medical bay and made another decision. Running wasn't enough anymore. Hiding wouldn't work forever if they were going to survive. They needed help. Real help. Marcus activated his long-range communicator and sent out a message on an old military frequency. It was a code he hadn't used in 20 years from his time in the Human Defense Forces. The message was simple. This is Marcus Chen. I need extraction. Bringing valuable intelligence. Hostile forces in pursuit. Within an hour, he received a reply. Marcus, you old bastard. This is Sarah Voss. Still getting into trouble, I see? Sending coordinates. Don't die before you get there. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Sarah had been his commanding officer during the border wars. If anyone could help them fight back against these hunters, it was her. He plotted a course. For the coordinates Sarah had sent and engaged, what was left of his engines, the war for Zara's freedom, was just beginning. Part 4. The network Sarah Voss hadn't changed much in 20 years. She was still tall and tough, with gray hair pulled back in a military style. Her handshake could crush bones, and her eyes missed nothing. But when she saw Zara step off Marcus's damaged ship, something soft appeared in those hard eyes. Well, I'll be damned, Sarah said quietly. Marcus, you really know how to pick up strays? They were on Haven Base, a hidden asteroid station that didn't appear on any official maps. Sarah had built it with other human veterans after the border wars ended. It was supposed to be a quiet retirement home for old soldiers. Instead, it had become something else entirely. Follow me, Sarah said. leading them through corridors filled with beings Marcus didn't recognize. I want to show you something. They walked past a medical bay where a human doctor was treating a creature that looked like a walking tree. In another room, human engineers were helping a group of insect-like aliens repair their ship. Everywhere Marcus looked, he saw humans working alongside species he had never seen before. "What is this place?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. "Remember? How we used to complain that Command never told us who we were really fighting for? Well, now I know." She led them to a large meeting room where dozens of beings were gathered. Some were clearly refugees. Their clothes were torn. Their faces showed signs of trauma. Others looked like fighters, veterans from various species, who had seen too much war. But what surprised Marcus most were the humans. There were at least 30 of them, all different ages and backgrounds. Former soldiers, traders, engineers, doctors, people who had somehow found their way to this hidden base. "Ladies, gentlemen, and others," Sarah announced. "Meet Marcus, Chen, and Zara. They're the ones I told you about." An older human woman with kind eyes approached them. "I'm Dr. Alina Torres," she said to Zara. "I've been working with beings like you for 10 years, survivors of the hegemony." Zara's glowing patterns flickered with confusion. "Hegemony. Ones who destroyed your world?" Dr. Torres explained gently. "They call themselves the hegemony. They've been doing this for centuries, finding species with special abilities, studying them, stealing their powers." Marcus felt cold. "How many species?" 47 that we know of," Sarah replied. "Maybe more. The hegemony works in shadows. They find isolated worlds, small populations. They take what they want and leave no witnesses." A being that looked like a crystal sculpture stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "It took my people's ability to see through time. Their leaders can predict the future. Mine could phase through solid matter," added a creature covered in silver fur. "Hegemony assassins use that power now." Zara moved closer to Marcus, overwhelmed by all the pain and loss she could sense in the room. These beings had all lost everything, just like her. But Marcus felt something else from them. Determination, hope, the desire to fight back. "You've been hunting them," Marcus realized. Sarah nodded. "For 15 years. Every time we find hegemony operations, we shut them down. Every survivor we can save, we bring here. Every piece of technology we can steal, we study. But they're too big," Dr. Torres added sadly. "Too powerful. Save a few people here and there, but we can't stop them completely." Marcus looked around the room at all the faces, human and alien alike. "How many humans are part of this?" "About 200. Spread across the galaxy," Sarah said. "Mostly veterans like us, people who got tired of watching the strong prey on the weak." A young human man with cybernetic implants spoke up. "We call ourselves the Underground Railroad, like the old Earth story. We help people escape slavery." Zara suddenly gasped and grabbed Marcus's arm. Her patterns were flashing rapidly. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "Ships," she whispered. "Many ships. Coming here. I can feel the cold mines." Alarms began blaring throughout the base. Sarah ran to a communication panel. "This is Haven Base. Report. Commander, we have 15 hegemony vessels dropping out of hyperspace. They're surrounding the asteroid." "Sarah, cursed? How did they find us?" Marcus felt sick. "It's my fault. They tracked my ship somehow." "Doesn't matter now," Sarah said. "All civilians to the shelters. Combat teams to your stations." But as the humans and aliens scrambled to their positions, it became clear they were in trouble. Haven Base had defenses, but nothing that could stop 15 warships. "We need to evacuate," Dr. Torres said. "Where?" Sarah replied. "They've got us surrounded." That's when Zara stepped forward. "I can help." Marcus shook his head. "Zara, no. You nearly killed yourself stopping 2 ships. This different," she said, her standard improving under stress. "Here I have help." She looked around the room at all the other survivors. "You all have abilities, different abilities. What if ... we work together?" The crystal being chimed softly. "Combine our powers?" "I can sense emotions, project them," Zara explained. "You can see future. Others have different gifts, Together, maybe we strong enough. Dr. Torres's eyes widened. A psychic network. It's theoretically possible, but no time for theory, Sarah interrupted. The hegemony ships are charging weapons, Zara. Move to the center of the room. It's everyone who willing, take hands, make circle. Most of the survivors joined her immediately. They'd lived with fear for too long. It's the chance to fight back, even if it killed them, was worth taking. The humans hesitated. They didn't have psychic abilities like the aliens. What can we do? Marcus asked. Zara smiled at him. You give strength. You give ... humanity. The thing hegemony not understand. Marcus took her hand. One by one, the other humans joined the circle. When the connection formed, it was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Suddenly, he could feel every mind in the room. The crystal beings' glimpses of possible futures. The silver creature's ability to phase between dimensions. Dozens of other powers, all flowing together. But what held it all together was something purely human. Love, courage, the stubborn refusal to give up on people who needed help. Zara was at the center of it all, her empathic abilities amplifying and directing the combined power. Through her, Marcus felt the cold minds on the hegemony ships. The enemy crews were confident. They had overwhelming firepower. They expected easy victory. They were not prepared for what hit them. 40-7 different psychic abilities, all focused. Through Zara's empathic powers and strengthened by human determination, struck the hegemony fleet like a psychic tsunami. Some ships found their crews, suddenly unable to remember how to operate their weapons. Others experienced time loops that left them firing at targets that weren't there. Several ships phased partially out of reality and couldn't find their way back, but the most devastating attack was the simplest. At the hegemony crews, love for family, compassion for strangers, the willingness to sacrifice for others. Emotions the hegemony had tried to eliminate from there. Soldiers Marcus watched on the base's screens as the enemy fleet fell apart. Ships collided with each other. Crews abandoned their posts. Some vessels simply stopped fighting and drifted away. When it was over, only 3 hegemony ships remained functional. They retreated quickly, their crews too shaken to continue the battle. The psychic network dissolved, leaving everyone exhausted but victorious. Sarah looked around the room with wonder. I've been fighting them for 15 years, and we just destroyed more hegemony ships in 10 minutes than we had in the previous decade. Zara swayed on her feet, but she was smiling. We did it. Together. Marcus caught her as she started to fall. Through their bond, he felt her emotions. Pride, hope, and something new. Family. She had found family among these humans and aliens who refused to give up on each other. This is just the beginning, Sarah said, her voice filled with new determination. With this kind of power, we can do more than just rescue survivors. We can take the fight to them. Marcus looked around the room at faces filled with hope instead of despair. The hegemony had made a mistake. They had assumed that scattered, traumatized survivors could never fight back effectively. They had never faced the power of beings who chose to become family. Part 5. The New Beginnings. 6 months after the battle at Haven Base. Marcus stood on the bridge of his new ship and watched a miracle happen. Below them, on the surface of New Hope, a planet that had been dead and empty just weeks ago, thousands of beings were building a city. Not just any beings. Survivors, refugees, people who had lost everything to the hegemony and found each other instead. The medical centers are almost finished, Dr. Torres reported over the communication system. We can start bringing in the most injured survivors next week. The defense platforms are online, Sarah added from the military command center. The hegemony comes here, we'll be ready. Marcus smiled and looked at Zara, who was standing beside him. She had grown stronger over the past months. Her glowing patterns were brighter now, and she moved with new confidence. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The fear was gone, replaced by something Marcus had rarely seen in his travels across the galaxy. Peace. Double quotes, how many ships today? Zara asked, pointing at the incoming vessels on the scanner. 12, Marcus replied. 3 carrying Kethari refugees from the outer spiral. 4 with medical supplies from human traders. 5 with new volunteers for the network. What, still amazed? Marcus, how quickly word had spread. After their victory at Haven Base, the story of humans and aliens working together had traveled from system to system. Survivors who had been hiding in fear for years were finally coming forward. And humans, independent traders, former military, even some from respectable consortium worlds, were leaving their comfortable lives to join the cause. The Consortium Council wants to meet with us again. Sarah's voice came through the communicator. They're offering official recognition and funding. Marcus shook his head. Same answer as before. We work better in the shadows. It was true. The moment they became official, they would have to follow rules and regulations. They would have to ask permission to save lives. That wasn't how humans worked, and it definitely wasn't how the Underground Railroad worked. A new voice joined the conversation. Marcus, this is Captain Hayes on the Freedom's Edge. We've got a problem. Marcus knew Hayes, a former human naval officer who now commanded one of their rescue ships. If he was calling directly, it was serious. What's the situation, John? We found another laboratory. Hegemony Research Station in the Vega system. But this one's different. They've got prisoners, Marcus. Lots of them. And they're preparing for some kind of mass extraction. Marcus felt Zara stiffen beside him. Through their bond, he sensed her. Mixture of rage and determination. How many prisoners? Marcus asked. At least 200? Maybe more? Different species, all with psychic abilities. They're planning to harvest them all at once. Marcus closed his eyes. 200 beings about to suffer what Zara had endured. It was the largest hegemony operation they had ever discovered. What's the defensive situation? Heavy. 20 warships, plus the station's own weapons. This isn't a rescue mission, Marcus. This is a full military assault. Through the ship's internal communication system, Marcus could hear the activity level increasing. Word was spreading quickly. Within minutes, every human and alien on New Hope would know about the prison station. Sarah's voice came back on the line. Marcus, we can have 50 ships ready to go in 12 hours. It won't be easy, but no. Zara interrupted softly. Everyone went quiet. Zara? Marcus asked. She was staring out at the planet below, where thousands of rescued beings were building. New lives. Fighting will save some, but more will die. There's ... better way. What do you mean? Zara turned to face Marcus, her purple eyes serious. At Haven Base, we learned that together, we are stronger than alone. But we fought with anger, with fear. What if we fought with love instead? Marcus didn't understand, but he felt her certainty through their bond. The prisoners, Zara continued. They are afraid, alone, hopeless, like I was. But if we could reach them, show them they are not forgotten. Psychic broadcast. Dr. Torres's voice came over the communicator. She had been listening from the medical center. You want to contact all the prisoners at once? More than contact, Zara said. Share hope. Share the knowledge that people care about them. Show them they have family waiting. Understand. And if the prisoners know they're not alone, ... They fight back, Sarah finished. From the inside. It was an incredible risk. To reach that many minds across such a distance would require every psychic survivor on New Hope. If it failed, they would all be exhausted and defenseless when the hegemony inevitably came looking for them. But if it worked, I'll need volunteers, Sarah said. Every species, every ability, and humans to give strength. The response was immediate. Within an hour, over 3,000 beings had gathered in New Hope's main square. Survivors who had been saved months ago stood next to refugees who had arrived just days before. Humans who had never experienced psychic contact prepared to link minds with aliens whose thoughts moved faster than light. At the center of it all stood Zara. No longer the frightened girl Marcus had found in a broken ship. She was something new now, a bridge between species. A living symbol of what the galaxy could become when different peoples chose to work together. Everyone ready? Zara asked. Marcus took her hand and felt the now familiar warmth of their connection. Around them, thousands of other hands joined together. When the network formed this time, it was different from the battle at Haven Base. Instead of anger and desperation, Marcus felt love flowing through the connections. Hope, the joy of beings who had found family among strangers. Zara gathered all of that positive energy and sent it racing across the galaxy toward the Vega system, toward 200 terrified prisoners who thought they had been forgotten by the universe. The message was simple. You are not alone. We are coming. Hold on. On the prison station, something unprecedented happened. Prisoners who had given up hope suddenly felt strength flowing into them. Beings who had been isolated for years felt the mental touch of thousands of others who understood their pain. The Cathari prisoners, Kamasimo, began singing something they hadn't done since their capture. The Zephyrian captives started glowing brighter than their guards had ever seen. Throughout the station, prisoners began to remember who they were before the hegemony broke them, and then they began to fight. Prison doors, weakened by psychic pressure, suddenly burst open. Guard weapons, overwhelmed by telepathic interference, stopped working. Security systems, confused by precognitive abilities, began attacking each other instead of the prisoners. Within hours, prisoners had taken control of their own rescue. By the time Marcus and the rescue fleet arrived, the hegemony forces were in full retreat. The prison station was in the hands of its former captives, who greeted their rescuers with tears of joy. 200 more survivors. 200 more beings who would never have to face the darkness alone again. Later, as Marcus watched the former prisoners settling into their new homes on New Hope, Zara approached him. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what? We're showing me what it means to be human?" Marcus looked at her with confusion. "Zara, you're not human?" She smiled, her patterns glowing softly in the evening light. "No, but I learned human things. To care about strangers. To fight for others. To never give up on family." Marcus looked out over the growing city, where dozens of species worked side by side. Human engineers taught alien refugees how to build homes. Alien doctors shared their knowledge with human medics. Children of different species played together in the streets, their laughter echoing across the settlement. Marcus said slowly, "Being human isn't about what species you are. Maybe it's about what you choose to do." Zara nodded. "Then we are all human here." In the distance, another ship was landing, more survivors seeking sanctuary, more beings who needed to know they weren't alone. Marcus and Zara walked toward the landing pad together. There was work to do. There were always more people to save, more families to reunite, more hope to share. The hegemony was still out there, still hunting, but they would find something they had never expected, a galaxy where different species chose to become one people, where the strong protected the weak not for profit or power, but simply because it was right. They would find a galaxy that had learned to be human, and in that discovery, the hegemony would find their greatest fear realized, a universe where their victims refused to stay victims, where love proved stronger than fear, where no one had to face the darkness alone. The age of predators was ending. The age of family had begun.